This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. I hope you are able to hear me. So I'm only going to take you through this Microsoft SQL Server sessions. Okay, so I just started uninstalling because I'm already having the SQL Server in my system. If I uninstall it, then only I can show you practically how we can do installation, how we can do configuration. Okay, so this uninstallation will go parallelly, and I'm just going to give a brief idea about what is the purpose of the SQL Server. If you wanted to run the business, we need to have a SQL Server. Let's say you're running a business. If you take any business in the market, you will be having some applications. You will be having some applications. So that may be Windows application, or that may be mobile application, or anything to run your business. So if you wanted to store the data in this particular place, or if you wanted to store your transactional data, then we need to have a storage. So that storage is 100% is OLTP system. We can call this as a OLTP system, online transactional processing system. Online transactional processing system. So we have a various systems to use as a OLTP systems. We can use SQL Server. We can use Oracle. We can use DB2. We can use MySQL. Something like this. They're going to use it. So all these systems will be used as OLTP systems to run the business. Okay, so if you wanted to store the data, then we are going to use SQL Server. If you wanted to store the data into your business system, as a business system, we are going to use your SQL Server. Okay. You can use Oracle also, so that's not a problem. But in our case, I'm just going to talk about SQL Server. So to load the data into SQL Server, we need to know about what is SQL Server. At the same time, this is for business applications. You may have a .NET applications, or you may have a Java applications, or Python applications. There may be something to store the data here. And what we are going to do is, we are a report developers. So we are not going to feed the data most of the times. We are going to read the data from there. So this particular OLTP system will be, this SQL Server will be used as a OLTP system. And we can also use this as a data warehouse also. This we can call it as a OLAP systems. So in OLAP also the same to same. You can use Oracle, you can use DB2, or you can use a SQL Server. Apart from that, we have a Teradata and Netizen and many databases are there. So all are databases only. Okay, so this is also a database. So here I mean to say, if I wanted to load your transactional data, we require database. If you wanted to store historical data, so what kind of data we are going to keep in this particular OLTP systems is historical data. And here we're going to keep business data. OLTP system contains business data. Okay, but here historical data. Of course, this is also business data, but it is a historical data. So to load the data into this system, or to feed the data into this system, or to read the data from this particular system, or to read the data from here, we need to have a one language to communicate with this SQL Server, either being used by business data or historical data, we need to communicate with them. So how we are going to communicate is by using SQL, we are going to communicate with them. Here also we are going to use the SQL to load the data, and to read the data also we are going to use the SQL Server, SQL code, and here also the same thing. So SQL means structured query language. SQL means structured query language. Structured query language. Without knowing this, working as a BI developer is difficult. Working as a BI developer is difficult. Okay, so most of the people says without having SQL we can work on Power BI. It's 99% is wrong. So 99% is you need to know about the SQL Server also. So when the moment you face the situation, then you can feel how important it is. You may do it without writing SQL Server, SQL code. You can do it, but if it is very brand new report, if they're not allowing to, if they're not allowing to write the SQL code, so there will be standards they're going to follow it. Okay, so definitely there is an importance of SQL code. So structured query language is very important to read the data from the SQL Server and to load the data into SQL Server. So it's this particular language is not only for SQL Server. This we can also use it for Oracle. You can use it for MySQL. There will be slight difference in the syntaxes. So it's a language to communicate with this person. Just let me check this uninstallation is done. Just give me a moment. I'll keep that uninstallation. Oh my God. I need to restart it. Okay, so I need to restart this system. So be on the line. I'll be rejoining in this particular session. Guys, able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh my God. Just 1 minute. Okay, it's not available. I guess it may ask us to. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay, so as we discussed, SQL Server will be used to store the data, and SQL Server will be used to read the data from there. So in order to communicate with this, we need to have a SQL Server language. So I'm just saying to communicate SQL Server, we required SQL, that is SQL Server structured query language. So this is we required. In order to communicate with SQL Server, so we need to install it. We need to install and configure. So if you wanted to know about the SQL Server, definitely you need to install in your system, and then only you can do practice. Otherwise, you cannot do the practice. So currently we are having SQL Server 2022 version. You need to download it, SQL Server 2022. So how we are going to download, I'm going to show you. In my system, it was already downloaded. I can directly go for installation. But to show you how you can do it, that I'm just going to take you through that. Let's just search for SQL Server 2022. This is the latest version we're having. 2019 is the previous version of your SQL Server 2022. You can see here, there is a try SQL Server 2022. Let's hit on it. Once we hit on it, I wanted to install my on-premise. So we need to choose this option, SQL Server on-premises. Let's hit on download. So when you hit on download, it will ask details to provide it. So I'm just going to provide few details here. Okay, so just hit on download. When you hit on download, it will go for download. You can give some size, hit on download. So we have a exe file here. Okay, so just leave everything. I'm just going to hit on 64-bit edition file. So this is the main important file. Okay. Just double click on this file. So it is going to ask you to download to which place you wanted to download. When you go for here, it is going to come like this. I don't need this one. I wanted to go for custom. So when you go to the custom, you can have a look here to where exactly it is going to be extracted. So if you this will go by default to the C drive. It is going to extract it, and once it is extracted, you can find something like this: C drive SQL 2022. So since in my system it was already extracted, I don't want to go again. You can directly go and select custom and hit on install. It will go and extract the file. Okay, so once it is extracted, you can it opens automatically. Okay, so otherwise, let me do one thing. It takes time. To avoid the time, I wanted to go for let's keep inside this path. Sample databases. Okay, so into this particular place, it will go and sit, hit on install. Download SQL Server 2022 by providing few details. Okay, so in order to know about the structured query language, so this SQL was categorized into multiple pieces. One is data definition language, data manipulation language, data querying language, data transaction. So out of all these things, first three are important for us, and very important is this one. Data querying is very, very important for us. As we are working as a BI developers, we require to know about this. Okay, so rest of them will be taken care by application developers. Okay, so I mean to so what does it is here is, if I have a data here, we are always going to read the data. So to read the data, we are going to use the statement called select statement. So this is very important for us. Rest of the languages, so since it is downloading, the network is getting dropped, I guess. So if you are doing very faster time, then there will be no issue for you. Since in my system was already there, so there will be some issues. When you go for second time installation, there will be some issues. So we need to do properly an installation, then we can go for installation. So download is successful. Automatically it will trigger to installation. So this is the installation window. If my guess is correct, it will ask us to restart the system. Let's see. So here in the left pane, you can see there is an installation. And this window you are going to get automatically, or if it is not getting, you can go to that particular place where exactly it was extracted, and you can find there is a setup file. If you double click on the setup file to wherever you have downloaded, automatically it is going to be triggered into this particular place. Let's say installation, and there is a new SQL Server standalone installation. But since in my system it was already installed, I need to make sure to remove all the existed stuff. I don't need all these things. I'm just going to take out except this folder. Continue. So database folder is my folder, so it's not required to do it. They're not going. Basically, it has to move all of them. Let's do again. I'll do one thing. Let me close this one. Now try. Let's do same thing again from this place, from program files. So this is for only second time installation, not for the first time installation. Maybe once we restart it, it may go off. That's fine. Let's go to D drive, sample databases. Here is the one, set of file. Just double click on it. Hit on installation. Hit on new SQL Server standalone installation. So to practice this, even for Power BI that we are going to see later, so that is also very important. You have to install for your Power BI practice also. So because of that reason, we are taking the SQL sessions here. So and when it is going for 2022, most of the people are going to get confusion here. So just specify a free edition here. That is evaluation edition I'm taking. Let's say hit on next. Accept the license terms and hit on next. Let's say next. Again next. So it's very simple. It will go just ask you to provide next and hit on enter. So this is the place where we can see the difference between 2019 and 2022 version. So I don't need the Azure extension for SQL Server. So I'm just going to uncheck this. You need to uncheck it. If you check this one, you have to provide the details. Okay, I don't need to go for Azure extension. So I'm just going to take it as a normal SQL Server. Let's go and hit on next. And so what we are going to install, that is important. I wanted to go for SQL Server database engine. So database engine I required and analysis services is required. And there is a integration services also is there. I'm just taking this. These two are not required for your case. We required only database engine. We required only database engine. So we don't require this analysis services. Let me take out and check this one. I don't need them. I need only database engine services. If I need this analysis services, then I can go for this again installation. If I need this integration services, I can go for this. At this point of time, I required only SQL Server database engine. Let's say next. So when you install first time, your instance is going to get MS SQL Server. That indicates your default system. I mean to say your system name is going to be taken. So this is the system name. RSoft is the device name. So automatically your RSoft will come into this particular place. Let's say next. Again next. So we need to add administrator for this. For every server or for every service, we required administrator. For SQL Server, yes, we required administrator. I'm taking Windows authentication mode. So whatever the authentication mode you're taking, that you can take it. I'm just taking Windows authentication by adding current user. So current user is this. Let's go to next. And finally, you can just go and hit on install. My God, something is going on. That installation was not done properly, if my case is correct. Anyhow, this is the way how we are going to set up the installation, how we can do install. So right after this, after completion of that installation, you have to install SQL Server Management Studio. If you don't have this, then you cannot work on SQL Server. So here we are installing server only. Yes, perfectly. This is successfully installed. This is how we need to get it. So database engine is successfully installed. Let's close this. And we need to make sure to install SQL Server Management Studio. In my system, it was already installed. So you can hit on this free download. So once you install, it's not much difficult. So you can directly go for download and install from your side so that you can see how it is going to be there. Let's close this. So installation is done. You just imagine you install this SQL Server Management Studio. It is a client tool. So before keeping SQL code in Power BI, we need to make sure is code executable as per requirement. So is it executable or not? You need to make sure it. You cannot directly go and write a SQL code in Power BI. Even if you write it, there will be a lot of issues, a lot of errors. So to avoid that, we need to prepare the code with SQL Server Management Studio, making sure that query is perfectly all right and perfectly executable. So for that reason, we require SQL Server Management Studio. Not only this, not only in this particular Power BI, so wherever you are going to use the code, to make sure the code is working or not, we need to go with the SQL Server Management Studio. Or simply I can say, if you wanted to communicate with this, we required an interface. That interface is SQL Server Management Studio. So without this, no one can work with SQL. So that is very important for us. So how it is going to be there is just search for SQL Server Management Studio. In my system, it was already installed. You can see here, SQL Server Management Studio. Let's open it. I'll show you only how we can connect it. So this is going to ask you to which one you're going to connect. I wanted to connect to the database engine. What is the name of the server? RSoft. Or even if you forgot about it, you can just go and hit on browse for me. Which database engine? Database engine. If you expand it, then it is going to show you RSoft. Let's hit OK. And I'm just going to use the Windows authentication. We need to connect it. So all this stuff will be taken care by someone else at the time of working. In this particular case, we have to install everything. Let's hit on connect. Now it is connected. Okay. So how we are going to restore the databases? We'll see that. For if I wanted to create a database, how we are going to create a database. So if you want to practice, then we need to know how we can create a database for practicing only. In real time, we are not going to create a database. 99% we are not going to create a database. Creating a database with UI and with code. So how I'm going to create a database with user interface, I'm going to show you. Right click on the databases, a new database. So with UI, how it is going to be there, I'm going to show you here. I'm just going to say test. A test database I'm creating. Let's hit OK. A database is created. If you wanted to create a database by using the coding, when you select this databases, I'm just going to say hit new query. When I say new query, it is going to have a database called a master database. From the master database, we are going to create it. So to create a database, we are going to use the create statement, create a database. Database name is, I'm just going to say data store. The name of the database, I'm just giving data store. So to create a database, I don't want to spend a lot of time because we are not here to create a databases. We are here to read the data from the database. There are many things that you can add to this. How much size you wanted to keep, where exactly you wanted to keep the data store, or where exactly you wanted to keep the log. There is a lot of things, but I don't want to touch that. That is not even important for you. So I'm just going to say create database and database name just for practicing point of view. Let's execute it. Now this is executed. To know is your databases are available or not, whatever the database we have created here, just hit on refresh. Now I can see the two databases here. If I wanted to have a stuff, whatever the stuff we required in this particular database, then we can keep it. So that I'm going to take it through in next session, how we are going to create objects in the database. So data definition language, I'm going to take you through this, how we can create a database, how we can create a tables and how we can change the data types, what are the data types we're having. So that I'm going to take you through. And here also we don't require to spend a lot, I mean to say not much important, but there may be situations over the period of time. This will be helpful. Okay, so how we are going to create a tables and how we are going to feed the data, that I'm going to take you through on tomorrow's session. I'm stopping here, and make sure to install SQL Server in your machine also. If you install, then you can start doing practice along with me. It's not like Power BI. Spend time, This is very important. At least a minimum 10 to 20% questions will come from the SQL Server in the interview. Okay. Any questions before stopping? Okay then. Thank you for joining. We'll see you on tomorrow.